Hello and welcome to Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Jim Rugg.
I'm Ed Piscor.
Dave Cho.
Special guest Dave Cho joining us to go through a special issue of G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe number 60. And what makes this one so special, Dave? Why did you want to take a look at this?
Well, all in my heart, all GI Joes are special, but this one is written or not written. This one is written by Larry Hama, but drawn by the great Todd McFarlane.
Let's play a game with this issue because McFarlane drew two issues. He drew issue 61, but the final printed version, it was Marshall Rogers. And then when Todd McFarlane goes away, they take those pages off the shelf. They put a new cover drawn by one of their staff dudes in the pose of the Spider-Man 1 cover. It's Snake Eyes, and they put that out in 5-6 years later, and so McFarlane was fired from this. He mentions that he got fired by Larry Hama. Larry Hama was nonplussed with the work that was turned in. So the game will play as we go through. Let's try to, for fun, come up with some reasons of what the heck did Larry Hama see that made this a fireable offense? Because I see really one thing that's real well, maybe two things that are real corny. But if anything comes to mind as we're going through, chime in with that. But that is sort of a little bit of a backstory with this thing. Dude, can you grab my issue right there?
And I just want to say, I don't really go on my social media anymore, but when I did, it's when we talk about masculinity and what shaped our childhood, for me, G.I. Joe was the only game in town for a long time. I only read G.I. Joe. I'd have blinders on. That was what I got from my 7-Eleven, my local liquor store. But then, so many of these issues are written by Larry Hama, and I think he's Japanese American, and he's this guy wrote the books that kind of shaped my, G.I. Joe, all this shit from my childhood. And he reposts meme, puts up dad jokes. He puts up he's the worst Facebooker. And I'm I can't believe this guy is the guy that's responsible for all the these characters. You'll see, because for me, the golden era of G.I. Joe is Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow. That's it for me. That issue of G.I. Joe where there's no words and it's just Snake Eyes running around and you see Baroness in her underwear, and that just was him fighting Storm Shadow, kicking him out of a graffiti covered subway, all that stuff. The characters were cool. There was camouflage, there were flamethrowers. And then this era of G.I. Joe is kind of I was too old already to be reading this. I was too old. When we go through this, just know I have that skiff that Zanzibar's riding on. I have all these I have all these action figures, and I didn't have any money then. So how did I get them? I shoplifted every character in here, and also wasn't too happy about it. A lot of shame around it. I'm I wanted to hold on to that golden feeling of Snake Eyes, Storm Shadow, ninjas, the army, but this was getting into a weird territory,
For sure, man. This issue, I got this exact one when I was 5 years old off the stand on the way to a family vacation. And I remember I read it in the van on the way to, Geneva on the Lake, Ohio, or wherever we went. And then I read it on the little pebbly beach at the lake, at Lake Erie. So this issue holds
great memory,
nostalgia
for me.
Should say
Zach Rubinstein cover there.
Yeah,
not a McFarlane cover.
And by the way, man, that Zanzibar and the skiff, he came with the skiff, and if you shoplifted that, man, that's a big box.
Oh, dude, I had the whole kit down. I would have sweatpants and duct tape the feet, and then I would put really baggy, not Jinko jeans, but really baggy, whatever the style was back then. And so I could throw anything down my pants, and the fashion of the day, the baggy 90s, whatever, it would hold. So I would just load up. But I always remember anytime I shoplifted a vehicle, it would hurt me because it wasn't an action figure. that you could just put on your underwear band. It would like stab into your leg a little bit, you know?
Real quick before we continue, Jimmy and I are cartoonists ourselves. Right now, I have Red Room, the Antisocial Network, out on the stands. The trade paperback has about 70 pages of extra material that is not found in the issues. So if you have the issues, there's a lot of added value to grabbing the trade. If you missed out on an issue, you could grab the big book. Every story is self-contained, though. So if you see an issue on the stands, scoop it up. You're going to get a complete experience. And coming next year, 2022, which is rapidly approaching, Red Room Trigger Warnings, issue 1 is going to be coming out in February. This is the standard cover, the Eddie P variant, the Peach Momoko retail incentive variant, and the classic Jim Rugg by way of Robert Crumb Zap Comics Zero variant, coming out in February. It also will be a series of self-contained stories, so if you see an issue, just scoop it up. Hot off the presses, man, is the announcement for Jim Rugg's Hulk Grand Design coming out in March, is it, Jim?
March 2022.
March 2022, 2 issues, Hulk Monster, and what's the other one?
Hulk Madness.
Hulk Madness, 40 pages, Jim taking 10,000 pages of comics material from 40 years of incredible Hulk lore, condensing it down into a high-octane comic book that is relentlessly energetic. You're going to want to get your hands on it, and there are variants that are promoted with that also, man. A Peach Momoko variant. I had to do one. Who's the other fella?
Marcos Martin.
Anything else you want to say about it real quick?
No, that sums it up really well. It's the opposite of decompressed storytelling. It's a perfect jumping on point celebrating the 60th anniversary of the Hulk's creation. So mark it on your calendars, March 2022. Tell your local comic shop proprietor that you want copies of this.
We have link trees in the description below this video where you can get to all our stuff. Now that we're done paying the bills, let's get back to the video. So with this splash page, I think I could find this to be a fireable offense that would make Larry Hama nuts, because we have 2 dudes talking on walkie-talkies about 5 feet from one another. Like, I could see Larry Hama being like, fuck you for this bullshit. Yeah. This is a serious comic.
I can't hear you, the airplane. It's too loud.
You know how simply it could have been fixed is, like, just add some depth. Like, if these characters were just, took up the whole space, it would at least put some distance between the two.
And just the opening page, this is what I'm talking about. That character, I had him. He comes with a dog, Law and Order, but it's just the dude with the dog. It's like so lame. He's wearing like a silver helmet. It wasn't cool, you know?
Yeah, this points out like our age gap and shit, because like I said, I was like 5 around this time, like when the G.I. Joe movie comes out, and that's what all these characters are. Like Don Johnson plays Lieutenant Falcon in the G.I. Joe animated movie, and this was my era, like. Chuckles, who's like one of the main guys in here, and I think this is his introduction. Like, I loved that toy because it felt like just like a regular citizen. Like, I always wanted them to have like I don't know, victim toys, hostage toys, just like regular people that can be saved and protected by G.I. Joe against Cobra. And he's the closest action figure from the G.I. Joe line that had just like, you know, a little Hawaiian shirt, kind of a little Tom Selleck Magnum PI influence.
You know they would have loved to have made those characters.
But how do you market
nobody
it?
would buy that.
Well, I think they would, man. But
Joe
it's like,
regular.
It's like, what do you call it? Like here, victim number 1.
Yeah.
This is such an amazing conversation for me to have with you, Ed, because I'm older than you and I fucking hated Chuckles. Still shoplifted them, but I was like, I'm coming from, you know, the progression or digression of G.I. Joes is they're cool, they're camouflaged, they're ninjas, they have weapons, and then they started getting really colorful and having like weird jobs, and then it got really weird in the Serpentor era where they all started turning into snakes and having fluorescent weapons. And that was kind of also in the 90s. There was a water gun called Enertech. They looked real, and then kids were getting shot by cops because they thought they were having these water guns that actually look like a 9mm Uzi. So then they started making the same guns, but like fluorescent green with like pink, you know, spots on it and stuff. And if you just look at the color palette of this page, it's just like G.I. Joe started getting really colorful from like camo and army green. And I didn't like it. I wanted to like, that's not my G.I. Joe, but I was still hooked. So it's
not your newsprint either. Like, it feels like they're upgrading the paper somewhat. Part of the reason these colors are brighter, you know,
I'm gonna give shouts to the colorist on this page because they're good storytellers. Like the gas is kind of like a subject for the page. They're siphoning gas, stealing it, blah blah blah. So a lot of subtle colors, and you got like 100% magenta, 100% yellow to create that like bright red, and the hose is bright red also.
That's a good call.
So it really pops out on the page, and it's a storytelling mechanism.
Bob Sharon.
Shouts to Bob Sharon.
Shout out to Bob Sharon. And then this is like the introduction of the Dreadnoks, who actually, you know, it's like someone who's like, man, fuck this shit sucks. Like I was like, G.I. Joe sucks, but I was still hooked, so I kept getting all the issues, still getting all the toys. Was the introduction of Zartan. And Zartan's not in this issue, but you know, like Jonah Hill's character in Wolf of Wall Street when he sees Margot Robbie and he just pulls his dick out and starts jerking off. Like when this kid Chris, 3 houses down from me, showed me that there was a G.I. Joe that came with accessories where you could change his face and he also changes color in the light. I was filled with that kind of lust where I like just took it out of his hands. And he's like, dude, and I was like, I don't know what you want from me. You can come to my house, but just I have to have this toy. My parents will never buy it for me. It's just like I have to have it. And so I tricked him. I gave him some shitty thing, and then his parents came and they beat me up later that day, and I had to give it back. But just Zartan and these like I know too much about these people. Like Zanzibar with the top knot.
Yeah, with the physical, like with the synthetic hair.
Yeah, his backstory is that he used to be this like street urchin that lived like on a garbage barge, and he used to shoplift, and he smells his hygiene is so poor that the other Dreadnoks hate him. And that's pretty, I don't have a top knot now, but I became like this, I was like this street urchin kid that used to shoplift everything, and people didn't like me because I smelled so bad because I didn't take showers and stuff. And I hated, this is the feeling I'm trying to convey to you guys. I'm committing crimes to steal these toys that I don't want. Like I don't want Zanzibar and his skiff, and yet this compulsive behavior of, you know, why I ended up in jail later on in life is like, I don't need this. I don't want this. I already have Snake Eyes. Why am I? Snake Eyes comes with a fucking ninja sword, an Uzi, and a wolf. I don't want this guy with a top knot and like a belly shirt, you know? Like he looks like he should be like a hipster in Echo Park or something, you know? And
Dave, you did a zine or a mini comic, G.I. Joe, right?
It was like Slow Jams Part 2, and it was just like, that was like a iconic cover for me, still is, that I just painted over.
I was going to ask, because I've never seen that book. I've just heard it mentioned, so.
If I find a copy of it, I'll send you some like scans of it or something, but it's just like a zine that I made with my friends, and like, I think it had a mini story in it, like in the Slow Jams universe.
Hey, getting back to McFarlane art for a minute, how uninteresting is this page? When you think of McFarlane as like, you know, creates pages, right? I mean, like his writing process is draw a bunch of cool pages and then put them in order and make up a story. How far removed is it when you see a page like this?
One of the things that we discovered by comparing the final printed issue of number 61 with his iteration is that almost down to the panel number, it matches 1 for 1. So that leads me to believe that Larry Hama does reasonably tight scripts, and I actually think that he does roughs.
I was gonna say he might do layouts because like the wordless issue, you know, it's pretty famous, and you see the layouts for it. So.
Yeah. I do want to call out that they're in New Jersey, and there's this like Miami North, like this like resort town thing, and they're talking about how shitty it is to try to build a resort in Jersey. There's a HBO documentary. I think it's called Action Park. But the documentary is called Class Action Park because it was like some hedge fund millionaires who got kicked out of Wall Street but still have millions of dollars. And they're like, you know, we're going to turn this part of New Jersey into a tourist destination. And one of the things that they had to you know, get people to come to the park was a water slide that goes in 360.
Whoa. Is that for real?
It is for real, and he paid kids
a lot of lawsuits.
Class Action Park, baby. He paid the kids who worked for him $100 to go down the thing, and he said that after a while they started coming out all cut up and shit. And what they found out was one of the first kids when he went through it banged his face off of the padding that was in the like. Wait, you need to be the exact right weight and height to make the full like G-force of the 360. So if you were a little bit too heavy, if your aerodynamicism wasn't right there, like you might get up there and just like pratfall like right down on the thing, and then you have to fucking just dive down the rest. So what happened was the kids that were able to go through and who were coming out all cut up, they were sliding against fucking teeth that were embedded into the little padding.
Oh, man.
So you think that's around Miami North?
Maybe, man. It might be the same dude. Introducing Chuckles.
Oh, gross.
The ginger Magnum PI.
You know, the crime in all of this is, you know, as a kid, I don't know who Todd McFarlane is yet, so I'm buying all these comic books. Years later, I find out my favorite, you know, guy that draws Spider-Man and Venom did a G.I. Joe issue, and then I go back, I'm like, which one? You know, was it the silent issue? You know, and I'm like, it's the Chuckles issue. It's like it has no Snake Eye. You know, it doesn't have any of the recognizable, at least for me, characters, and it has, you know, a military police guy with a dog and this fast draw guy and Chuckles, and I was like, fuck, man. For McFarlane to have drawn all the characters that I grew up with would have been sick, and instead, it's like this one's like a tryout issue. It's like all these guys are trying out to be in the G.I. Joes, and I guess it was kind of you know, McFarlane was young and starting off, but you see all the faces, right? Like it's a super, you know, that's the McFarlane rubbery kind of face. And as I'm reading this, because it has Zartan's sister in it, Zorana, he's like, one thing I never put together is he's not that good at drawing women.
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't really draw like hot, sexy, beautiful women. He's kind of struggles with that, I think.
Who's this dude?
That's Fast Draw.
Fast draw.
Fast Draw. That's a weak gimmick. Everybody's hanging out, and he's there in like full costume, helmet.
In Miami North.
In North Miami.
Right.
North Miami, dude. You're not hot, bro. Whoa, look at that.
I feel like this is like one of the most kind of like McFarlane noodly drawings in
Yeah.
the entire issue. Like the rest is like very subdued when it comes to all the little tick marks and things that we associate with him. But he's really going for it there, man.
Yeah, almost like he had to fill in on the inks on this one himself or something.
Yeah.
I'm noticing how loud and angry I get when you bring up Chuckles and his Hawaiian shirts, and then I'm looking at my life now. Like most of the time, I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt.
Thrashing, man. That's a time frame.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
That was a frequent rental when I was a kid too.
Shouts to JB.
Gleaming the Cube.
Rad.
Brad. Look at that hair.
That one Police Academy with David Spade and those dudes, whenever the Bones Brigade were doing the stunt double work for them.
Oh, wow.
All
Deep
that
cut.
shit.
This is fantastic. We've been compromised. This Chuckles character is on to us. This is almost like wrestlers referring to themselves as characters, and old timers get mad at that. That's what you're getting here, where the comic book characters are referring to them as a character.
Yeah. We got the corrupt politicians and the corrupt general.
That corrupt politician's good. Good designs on that one for the Todd father.
This is a trope of G.I. Joe comics. Like, when are they ever going to realize you don't ever let a lady like that looks like this come
Like my
into
mom.
the pit? Because it might be Baroness.
Yeah,
but in
that's
this
what you'd
case,
expect.
it's not Baroness. Zorana, she's a master of disguise too, because she's Zartan's sister.
Mm-hmm.
And look at that hair. Like, he draws like fucking Peter Parker with that hair at a certain point, man.
There's so few women in G.I. Joe. It's to my knowledge, it's Scarlet, Lady J, Baroness, Zorana, and Jinx. And it's just like that. You know, I didn't, you know, playing with G.I. Joes is the male version of playing with dolls as a kid. And it always felt weird. Like, I'm not going to buy a girl toy, but
Yeah.
then I would do it. And you don't know how those things affect you until later in life. And I'm like, that was, you know, I talked a little bit about your idea of masculinity. That was my idea of femininity. And so those things are imprinted in my mind forever. Like a hot chick is either Scarlet with the red hair, or Baroness with like the black hair and the glasses, or the punk rocky Zartan's sister Zorana with the punky short pink hair. And Yeah, what I'm basically saying is I'm confessing and that I rubbed all the breasts of my action figures of all the female toys. I did it. That's what happened. But you guys know, I told you I just got back from Egypt, and I'm going to all these like, historical sites, and like any statue that has like breasts, the just from thousands and millions of people touching it, the breast and the vagina area and the ass is like, it has like all the oil from like all this fingerprints, and it's like kind of worn down. That's what all my female GI Joe figures look like. But like going back to the Punisher, at the end of the Punisher, like he got shot with the fully automatic machine gun. And I know this is a GI Joe gimmick. It's like you can't show killing and violence in a kid's cartoon, which was the GI Joe cartoon, but he's like Law and Order. He's getting blasted by the Dreadnoks with this machine gun, and his hat just gets a little crooked.
Dancing between the bullets, baby, and you can't no sell the fucking dog with a gun in its mouth. Is this what Larry Hama saw and was like, this fucking McFarlane kid is going nowhere? Get him off my book.
And very unsafe with his guns.
Yeah.
He's pointing a gun right at him.
Yeah. I don't know how the skiff just jumps out of the water like that, but there it is.
That's extra imagination. Like I never thought to do that whenever I was playing with it in the tub when I was a little dude.
This is genius. This whole North Miami gimmick of having like this be your missile silo, roll it right out onto the beach.
This is the best. So like you got all the Dreadnoks, you got Buzzer, I forgot all their names, Monkey Wrench.
It's like
one of the guys. This guy actually, the guy on the bike looks like, I think that's Buzzer.
Yeah.
He came with the chainsaw. He looks like Woody Harrelson's character from Natural Born Killers.
You're right. You're right. Like it makes me so suspicious of guys when I see them have those circle sunglasses, man.
Very suspicious. The crime in this issue also is you have the Dreadnoks, but you don't have Zartan. Like, what the fuck? Like, what a jib. And you don't have.
This whole issue is about the new line of toys, and they would do this very often where there's a new wave of figures that are out, like, and Larry Hama has to try to come up with a new way to like introduce them when he already has 60 characters to play with already. And then after a certain point, like did you read up to the point where like Zartan gets killed? They get buried in a boat with like Dr. Mindbender and Crocmaster and Raptor, like a bunch of dudes. They die for a couple of years, and then they start bringing in wave 2 of like the new Dr. Mindbender costume and the new Zartan costume with the orange mohawk and shit like that. Larry Hama had to do some creative leaps of logic.
I told you, man, it was embarrassing. Like all the kids that I grew up with that played GI Joes, they'd moved on to women and sports and whatever, and I'm like still here, going, why am I shoplifting Dr. Mindbender? Like he's a bald guy with a Zorro mustache and his 6-pack and a cape and a Spawn cape. I didn't like that I was stealing it, but you're right. This whole issue is just a giant commercial for the toys, and it worked. I didn't buy them, but I stole them all. So.
Kind of a weird page layout. There's 2 skinny panels on top of each other.
Yeah, maybe that's what Larry Hama couldn't stand.
Dude, if you guys have you guys had Larry Hama on here?
No, we have to. Like, I gotta respond to some emails.
Gotta get the dirt. And look at this, Cobra HQ, just like in the middle of, like it's like a terrorist organization, just has their own building in the middle of it.
Yeah, you know what it is? They, I know too much. So they establish like an island or something. So this is like the diplomat building. You know, it's like how there's the Russian diplomat buildings like all over the states and shit, and you're not supposed to go in there and put your little listening devices or whatever, but they do it anyway.
Yeah, the Cobra Consulate building. Of course, the folks he wants to see are on the top floor. I wonder if this was a super rush job for McFarlane. You know how that happens now and then, because I mean, the drawing is just uninspired.
Yeah.
Can you guys see the on the other page what the date is on those Comic Cons?
Oh yeah, good question.
And What year is that?
It's 87. This is I looked a little bit, and I think that he takes over Hulk like right after this issue. So, early Marvel work for him, maybe his
Well, I was
first
like-
Marvel work.
So I was like 11 or 12 when I was reading this. So like a little bit too old, I think, to be still playing with action figures, but I was doing it.
He seems to really get into it whenever there's some tech to draw. He'll put a lot of line work into that stuff.
Hey guys, I'm drawing a blank. What's the main G.I. Joe artist? It's the guy Jim Lee kind of idolizes. The fuck's his name?
A G.I. Joe artist?
Yeah, he did most of the G.I. Joe stuff.
Oh, you're talking. Well, I mean, there was a lot of different dudes, but are you talking like Mike Zeck or
It was Mike Zeck and
Michael Golden?
yeah, Michael Golden.
Yeah.
So for me, Michael Golden is like not knowing, like I didn't know anything about artists or anything. I just cared more about the characters. So that was my ideal G.I. Joe art. So I remember feeling weird seeing this one because everything looked kind of chunky and stylized, not knowing that this guy would be one of my favorite artists later on in life. But yeah, Michael Golden was my jam.
Yeah, you mentioned that Storm Shadow kicking Snake Eyes with the graffiti train. That was a Michael Golden cover.
Yeah,
That's a
so
great
good.
cover. It's a pretty good. I like that helicopter.
Can you imagine how fucking hard this must be to draw a G.I. Joe comic with all these weird vehicles and shit?
Wonder if
Can
you
you
would get
imagine-
notes back that like the toy's not right. Like fix
Hey,
that helicopter.
Hey, can you imagine trying to steal that helicopter? Like this is no joke, dude. Like I'm wearing a hooded sweater right now. That helicopter is probably like, well, I'll show you. I'm in my office right now. Here's like all my toys and here's all my shit. But like, so I would have that thing, and once again, it's easy to shoplift a tiny, 6-inch action figure, but I would put it under my shirt like this, and then just hold my hands out like that, and walk out with it, and it was just bold, because I was always fast as a little kid, because my whole mentality was like, hopefully they don't notice, but even if they do notice, I'm just gonna book it,
It's perfect too with the top knot. Like the distraction is draw their eyes up here and then take off.
That helicopter I stole. It was the worst is when you steal something like that and you didn't get all the accessories out of the box. So you get home and you have the toy but not the stickers to put on it or something.
Right.
You're like, fuck, I gotta return to the scene of the crime. And that's how you,
This looks like a Lucky Pierre kind of image.
in the Lucky Pierre human centipede situation, you always want to be the middle.
Yeah.
You want to.
Give and get. That's a well-balanced person. And look at Chuckles, man, just dusting himself off with them beefy-ass forearms.
There's the Miami Vice. Like now he switches to his collar up.
Yeah, exactly. He went from Tom Selleck to, Crockett and Tubbs. And he's so dramatic, too, going for his pen. It also abuses you see a hand right here.
Mm-hmm.
And in the same position, it's the hand. Oh, no. Is this... See, that's the storytelling thing. Like, is it supposed to be Chuckles' hand? But I guess maybe it's supposed to be his hand.
I think it's Chuckles. He's pulling the pen out.
Okay, yeah. So like that's all he had to do is have the hand come.
Yeah,
from this
make
way.
it come from the direction Chuckles is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe that's what Larry Hama
You're out.
objected to.
Get the fuck out of my. Get the
Wow.
fuck out of my book.
All right,
man.
look, I
Classified.
love Mad Balls. Whether you guys have Todd or Larry on first, I'm gonna guess it wasn't Larry. It was Todd that did something to get him fired. That's what I'm gonna put my money on.
Yeah, man. Well, we're gonna ask that question. I'm gonna make a note, but G.I. Joe 60, because of the Todd McFarlane connection, it was gonna be an episode one time or another, man. But when you mention this shit, of course we gotta dust that off and chop it up with the great Dave Cho. By the way, man, that hoodie looks fly as fuck.
Thank you, man.
So what do you say, fellas? Like, let's be done with this one.
Sounds good.
Let's do it.